Alright guys, this is going to be a recap of the Panthers. I put dismantling at the hands of the South Dakota State Jackrabbits this past Saturday. To put it accurately, based on the final score, as we only mustered about exactly 6 points, thanks to two Matthew Cook field goals. Then looking ahead to the Fighting Hawks of North Dakota, who had a impressive victory against the Bison this past Saturday as well. Alright, I'm going to move my icon, which seems to always get in the way. Alright, so just going over each drive, both scoring and non-scoring. We've got a punt to start our first offensive possession. Nothing really there. South Dakota State on their first drive has a pretty nice outing. As you can see, 8 plays results in a touchdown. I'm seeing Gronowski with the 1-yard keeper. Looks like, just looking kind of at, this is ESPN Plus, so this is available to everybody. I have Jaden Yonke, one of the Yonke brothers, with a nice catch during that drive. Isaiah Davis had a nice big chunk run, so that was kind of all she wrote for that drive, just picking up yardage, working their way downfield, scoring. We then get the ball, and we fumble. This was Bunton, I believe. Yeah, he was popped. The good news is that after we fumbled, no, I'm sorry. So the good news comes later. We fumble. And then they score again. This is Isaiah Davis with a nice big run here. Not big necessarily, but a big run in terms of that he scored. So this is where what I was alluding to before, because then we fumble on our next possession. That was Harrison Bay Bowie, which then led to us using a rotation of new running backs with Ty Edwards also out. I was thinking Josh Jenkins would get a couple more touches, but it looks like we were running with Rock. Or Roke, if I'm mispronouncing his last name. I know he was a newer face. But then they fumble thanks to my guy, Josiah Galvin, pops the ball. And then we've Tate Sander, a Sander brother, recovering it. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do much with it because then I have, after a nice third down completion to Sam Schnee by day, he throws a pick to Jace Freeman, I believe, was the person who picked it off. They fumble again. This is where Wu picks it up, and then predictably, we end up there. This is just a comedy of errors. I'm almost losing where I am in terms of which fumble this is. But basically, they fumble. We fumble again. I'm trying to determine who that was. Who fumbled? As my ESPN stats is loading, it may take a second. Yeah, how did we get that fumble? That fumble was Josh Jenkins. So the aforementioned Josh Jenkins fumbles it, and then South Dakota State turns it into a touchdown. So then at that point, we've got Gronowski to Yonke for 16 yards. Day throws another pick. Let's see where we're at here. So we have, Day throws another pick. South Dakota State is limited to a field goal, which they were actually saying is only the 4th time on the broadcast that a field goal had been attempted this season. They said that 19 out of their 20, and I'm talking about South Dakota State, 19 out of their 20 possessions that ended up in the red zone had resulted in touchdowns. That's insane to me, which is why they're the number 1 team in FCS, especially having watched this game. Luckily, we were able to generate some momentum, get a field goal in the final seconds of the half. It looks like Dyshawn Gales got a pass interference penalty that helped kind of move the chains. Other than that, I think we were, let's see, kind of what set up. We had Zach Brand hit a 12-yard run that kind of helped us out there. I know Desmond Hudson, who was actually the recipient, or was the intended recipient of a pick that Day threw a little earlier, had a nice 10-yard grab, it says, in that possession. So we're officially on the board, and we're feeling okay. Maybe not great going into halftime. All right, second half, State predictably starts the second half with a touchdown. I believe this is Zach Hines, if my memory serves correctly. Looks like Zach Hines, 6-yard run for a score. We punt. They get the ball again. And another Zach Hines touchdown. I'm looking at ESPN stats. Yeah, it looks like Amar Johnson was getting pretty active. Griffin Wilde, if I'm pronouncing that name correctly, for South Dakota State had a big catch on that drive. As you can see, I mean, we're punting. We're not really getting anywhere with our offense. Yeah, did they even punt? Like, I'm even looking at, did they end up getting a punt? I don't believe so. So they got a field goal. We limited to a 42-yard field goal, it says, for Hunter Dustman. And then we get a field goal, which is nice. That was a 7-play, 64-yard drive. Just looking at who was kind of active. That was the nice big chunk pass to Sam Schnee. You guys remember that? The one that it's like you're just waiting for him to turn on the extra burners. He had a nice pass in the open field. You can see how excited I'm getting about that, because I can see it in my head that if he had just broken another inch and kind of ran away from the receiver, we would have had a touchdown. But we got a field goal out of it. And then the game ends up ending with, they did get a punt. So there you go. I have a punt for State. And then the game ends. So that's your final, 41-6. All right. Let's look at some statistics. Day, 16-24, 2 picks. No scores. Obviously, it's kind of interesting because it doesn't even look like he had that many incompletions. But when you count that he had 2 interceptions, which are even worse than incompletions, I mean, not a great day for Day, but I think, can we really blame him, is going to end up being the story, because what we have instead of kind of this hero ball that Day was having to play normally, is what we have is a balanced rushing attack, and we didn't have that today. I mean, you'll see that our leading rusher is Zach Brandt, who did you guys know that he was active on this team? I mean, I think your common fan probably wouldn't know, but he was our leading rusher. Bowie had 2 nice carries while he was there. And then Jenkins, I'm a little surprised, had less than 5 yards. I really thought after the carries they gave him at Idaho State that he would kind of step up, and obviously he didn't. For receiving, Schnee, I mean, we've got 4 catches over 100 yards, so he's still in the FCS, the top of the leaderboard when it comes to receiving. Wolf had a nice game, a couple nice catches. Morency, he's always getting those sideline throws from Day. You would have wished he had a bigger day himself, but obviously that wasn't the case. Hudson, who has been pretty quiet, if not inactive. I think I saw him on special teams playing against Youngstown, but he's had really not a lot of meaningful moments. Had to kind of step up with some injuries that we sustained. Defensively, Wu had a phenomenal game. As you can see, 13 tackles, 10 solo. Dearman always coming in on the stat sheet. Staley. These are always the guys that you see at the top. Really the top. I mean, Governor, Wu hasn't had necessarily statistically always the biggest games. To see him have 13 is awesome. Because normally it's Dearman, Staley, and Galvin. Those are normally the main dudes. You got Ben Belkin, who really didn't play, I believe. Other than that, that's kind of what I have here. I don't have tackles for loss, unfortunately. I didn't put that in this, but this just gives you a little snapshot. Storylines, and I think I probably touched on all of these already. We have South Dakota State scoring touchdowns on all first half drives, excluding the ones that were fumbles and the field goal. Now, when I say excluding 3, is it really all? Should I phrase it like that they scored on all first half drives touchdown wise if they didn't score on 3? I mean, yeah, because there were a lot of drives, and the fact that they scored touchdowns in every single one of them, other than those exceptions, is meaningful. I think that and I put Ellis Leahy fumble, I meant to say the Bunton fumble, that put South Dakota State up 14-0 almost sealed the game, in my opinion, because it was just like so quick, so early in the game. And then that kind of became the beginning of this turnover galore that I phrased there. Because, I mean, you could even see in this breakdown that every team was fumbling, and there was nothing coming from the fumbles. It was fumble after fumble. Running backs were thin, already kind of touched on that. Edwards was apparently on the sideline. The commentators were acting that maybe he would get in the game. I think Galvin's poke, as the commentators also said, I forgot who it was, someone in South Dakota State, but then it was recovered by Sander. Let's see here. Causing a fumble, which they look to recover, and a poke by Galvin. 13-play drive that covers nearly 50 yards and over 5 minutes is erased with a pick. So that was, that was us. That was Ty throwing it, or not Ty, that was Theo throwing the pick there. So, and then that ties into Day trying to strong arm the offense, because that's what happens when you don't have a running game. When Babe Bowie's already your second string and he's out, you've got this going on. You've got 13-play drives that are mostly passing. I'm actually surprised that they only attempted 24 passes, but that's kind of what happens when you're turning it over all the time. You never have the ball. Now, I always confuse bunt and Ellis Leahy. So when I say carted off, Ellis Leahy carted off, forgive me if this is bunting. I know someone was carted off, and I hope he's okay, obviously. And I'll have to get that checked, but it looks like after he left, Hudson started playing a little more. I don't know if that was always the plan, but Hudson stepped up. Morrissey's stats didn't increase, which I thought may happen. Ongoing pattern of Day throwing into heavy coverage. I mean, even the sideline passes were unsafe. And I referenced those passes that he's always kind of trying to get, first and 10, and then we're trying to move it to like second and 6, just kind of dinking and dunking into the sideline. Because we had South Dakota State jump us on a short pass to the side. So Marshall, I think, had a tough game. He was always playing this really soft coverage, I felt like. And then you had the trio that seems to always be cleaning up, Dearman, Staley, and Galvin helping out. And then I'm not sure exactly what happened to Ben, but he didn't play. Previewing North Dakota. And I'll be quick here because we're already at 12 and a half minutes. 15th in the coaches poll. They just knocked off the Bison, who are 7. They'll be going down. I would predict, because they look better than North Dakota State. I mean, even though North Dakota State has still a pretty formidable offense, the Fighting Hawks should be 12, within top 12 when we face them this Saturday. Zebarth, I believe his name, had a phenomenal game. 3 scores, 150 yards rushing. We're talking about big chunk runs. That 60-yarder that he had, because I said he had a big chunk run, he had a 60-yarder. Even if you get rid of that, his yards per carry is still just a hair under 6. I believe it was like 5.9 yards a carry. So he can go up the middle. He can, he has breakaway speed, as represented by that big run. Skokna, number 7, took the opening return for a touchdown. He also had 2 more scores, and I know he's been there for at least a couple years. I believe he was playing in their COVID year. I want to say that don't quote me on that, but he's been there for a while, so he's experienced. The Hawks matched every touchdown that the Bison scored with a touchdown of their own, so that's pretty notable. Also, the score was 21-17 at one point, and the Bison were down 42-17. So Hawks are not coming to play. They're coming to kill. But they'll be playing either way. Schuster completed less than 10 passes. So we're talking about a performance that was almost similar to today without the picks. I would anticipate more passing because it says here historically Schuster is completing at least 17. So, all right. That'll be all. If I can get to this next slide, I'll be in section T this Saturday. If you guys want to say hi, I'll be on the front row. So I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.